I see this a lot. I see this with amateur cyclists and professional cyclists, and the solution to a leg length discrepancy is not always a sole. Mostly a sole in the one foot or a higher sole in the one foot is correcting a secondary or tertiary problem. It's a bit of a late evening, Friday evening, the 26th of May. Finished work late, going home through the forest. 99% of the people that come into the practice with a short leg problem, or they think it's a short leg problem, actually the legs are the same length. So you hardly, I would say from my experience, but 1% of the people coming into the practice actually have a short leg, and 99% of them have a pelvic problem. So we're going to have a look at that and speak about that. Most importantly, if you're going to look at leg length discrepancies and you want to check if you have a short leg, the biggest mistake you can make is stand behind that person, look for a pelvic tilt, for example to the right, and say the person has a right short leg. It just doesn't work that way. It's much more complicated than a pelvic tilt and subsequently a short leg. I'm going to run you through a couple of things and show you why it's so much more complicated. Here with me I have a pelvis consisting of a sacrum, a pelvic bone and a pelvic bone, and between the pelvic bone on the left and the sacrum we have the SI joint or pelvic joint. We're just going to call it the SI joint, okay? For sacrum in the middle and ilium on the outside. SI, sacrum, ilium. Most people that come into the practice and say they have a short leg have a pelvic problem, or the one side is different than the other side, or is functioning in a different way than the other side. Let's have a look at this pelvis. Going out from the fact that here is a screw so it can't move, and the left side can move. For example, if you had a fall, or you're working in the garden and you're pulling on a tree, it can be that you strain the right side, so the right side starts moving a little bit less. If the right side moves less, the left side might go compensating. So we're looking at the left side now, this side. The left side can compensate by tilting backwards. It can compensate by tilting forwards. It can compensate by going a little bit inwards. It can compensate by going a little bit outwards. Let's look at the pelvis from the side. So what we have here is the left pelvic bone, which attaches to the sacrum, and the SI joint is over here. Please look at these two markers, okay? This one and this one. If the pelvic bone rotates backwards, the hip goes a bit higher. Look at this over here. And it seems like you have a shorter leg. If the pelvic bone rotates forward, the hip goes lower and it looks like you have a longer leg. Backwards, the hip goes higher, you have a short leg. If the pelvic bone goes forward, the hip goes lower and you have a longer leg. I hope that's clear. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe to my channel and let me know what you think in the comments. I appreciate it. Cheers. Here's the hip where my little finger is. I hope you can see that. If the pelvis tilts backwards, the hip becomes higher, or the hip goes higher. That means the leg length on the left might seem a little bit shorter because the hip is higher. If the pelvis tilts forward, the hip here goes lower and it might look as if that leg is a bit longer. So the pelvic tilt, either backwards or forwards, can change your leg length and make you feel very uncomfortable on the bike. If the pelvis is not functioning well, it can absolutely affect the way you sit on the bike, and that can cause lots of pain. The first thing you shouldn't do is use a sole to compensate for the short leg. It's okay to use soles if you have soles that correct your foot at the bottom, but there should not be a discrepancy from the one side to the other side. We have a sole 2 millimeters or 3 millimeters higher to compensate for a pelvic tilt. A pelvic tilt like that means that your pelvis has compensated for something that's happening in the pelvis and not a short leg. So let's do that again. This part can move backwards if it compensates. That causes the pelvis to do that. So if you stand behind someone, you look at the pelvis to determine a short leg, you're starting at the wrong place. You have to start at the pelvis and you have to correct this problem. There's the pelvis from the front. You're sitting on the bike. The pelvis is rotated anteriorly. The top side is rotated forward subsequently, okay? That's just about how you're going to be sitting on the bike. If the pelvis on this side is rotated backwards, look at the pubic bone and what happens to the left pubic bone in correlation to the right. There's no way you can sit comfortably on that bike. It's going to hurt forever. So it's important to have your SI joints or pelvic joints loosened and checked for alignment, first of all, for mobility, and they should be doing the same kind of function on the bike, but obviously exactly the opposite of each other all the time. But the movement has to be free, no matter what kind of cycling pants you use, no matter what saddle you have, no matter what sole you have under your shoe, that's going to be a problem. So if the pelvic bone is in the right position and both are functioning exactly the same but opposite at all times, you should be able to remain on your pubic bones at all times on the saddle. So the pelvis should be functioning 100% well to make sure you don't get any injuries and muscle problems while cycling. I see this a lot. I see this with amateur cyclists and professional cyclists, and the solution to a leg length discrepancy is not always a sole. Mostly a sole in the one foot or a higher sole in the one foot is correcting a secondary or tertiary problem that's caused by something else, and the primary problem is most often the pelvis. So have that checked out and have that looked at. That's very important. I hope it helps. Let me know in the comments if you have questions.